who are considering starting their children at school either in 2024 or even 2025. My name is Belinda. I'm from Early Ed. I'm going to share screen, go through a few things, and then introduce our lovely guest speakers for this evening. Okay, so this evening will be recorded. The recording won't go out automatically to participants. It'll be available upon request. Once it's uploaded and a link is able to be sent out to you, there will be a recording that we can share. But I would like to start this evening by acknowledging the land on which I present from this evening, and that is the Darug land. I acknowledge that we are from all different lands, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. So thank you, and respecting the custodians of our land. This evening is brought to you through funding of the Department of Education, Start Strong Pathways. So we're very fortunate to be able to run these webinars. As part of running these webinars, we will later be sharing a survey link with you that we would really like your feedback from, so that we can continue running free webinars for families like yourselves in the future. We do have some guest speakers from all school systems this evening, from the Australian Independent Schools, from the Catholic Diocese and from the Department of Education. We also have a parent story that we will be sharing this evening. But from Early Ed, my name is Belinda and I'm your host for this evening, and I'm fortunately being co-hosted by Peter, who is also from Early Ed. So thank you for joining us as well tonight, Peter. For some housekeeping, we have a chat and a Q&A. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat. But the Q&A, if you have any questions for any speakers throughout the evening, please put your questions on the Q&A. So all panelists this evening will be checking that throughout the evening at different times as we're available to do so. Some of the questions we can answer directly as the night is proceeding. If we don't answer your questions throughout the night, please don't worry. At the end of the evening, there will be time, hopefully, to go back and look at those unanswered questions. Hopefully, one of the panelists will be able to speak to you, to your questions. So please use the Q&A for any questions that you might have. Finally, there will be 2 polls this evening. So a poll at the beginning and a poll at the end. Please take a moment to answer the question immediately. We will see the results coming through, and then once we do that, we'll be able to start with the evening. The feedback survey, I will have a link for that survey, and I will put that in the chat as the night proceeds. Again, please give us your feedback so that we can improve on our presentations, and we can target the presentations based on that and continue to run free presentations throughout the year. So I'm going to ask Peter to run the first poll now, please. Okay, so you should have a question on your screen now. Rate how confident you feel about enrolling your child to start school. And I can see some answers already coming through, so that's great. How confident you are in enrolling your child to start school. It's great. We still have some who are very confident, so hopefully we can still share more with you this evening. Some are confident. We've got most people somewhat confident and some not confident at all. And that's really understandable. So I really hope that this evening's webinar can cover all of your levels of confidence and can give you the information that you feel you need to take an extra step forward. So I'm going to end the poll. Thank you all for your contribution. There's the share results. Okay, so the purpose of tonight's information session is to gain an understanding of the various schooling options available to your child. So as I said, we've got the Australian independent schools, we've got Catholic, we've got Department of Ed. Within that, because this is for mixed abilities, we'll be talking a bit about mainstreaming as well as additional support needs that your child might have, whether support classes or special schools are an option for you as well. Another aim is to know what supports are available in each of these schooling systems, as I was talking about, as well as what you will need to do over the coming year or years in preparation for school enrolment. So they're the main goals of tonight. Getting children ready. Traditionally, families tend to, not always, but tend to focus on the academics. The 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. We now know that being ready for school is so much more than that. It's about a child as a whole, their emotional development, their social skills, their independence, their communication skills, etc. There's so much more. Getting a child ready for school is a lifelong process. It doesn't start the year before school or the term before school, as we might traditionally have experience with. It is a lifelong process. So everything we're teaching our child from birth and infancy through early childhood into schooling is part of being ready for school. But in order to do that, we need to have the whole community on board. So the family need to be ready to support their child. If your child is involved or enrolled and participating in an early childhood service, preschool or daycare plan with daycare, they need to be ready and part of this process as well. We need our community to be ready. So if you have any supports, any interventions, any professionals, any community members and family that are a big part of your child's life and learning, they too need to be ready and part of this process. And then, of course, school needs to be ready for your child. So all those other ready family, early childhood service and community, we need to be able to communicate what is important about your child so that they are ready to take your child on. And all of this together helps the child be ready to learn. So it really is a partnership. And as the saying goes, it takes a community to raise a child. Here's a classic example. So this is quite long, but it is a bit of a pathway of the things you will need to do leading up to enrolling your child in school. Creating a team of support, so that circle that I just showed you in the previous slide, who will help you get your child ready. Identify specific goals and priorities for yourself as a family and for your child. Organise the supports that you need to help your child get ready. Make sure everybody's on board with these goals to get your child ready. Gather any information about the school options. So even if you're slightly considering a school and an option, gather the information that you need, even if you choose not to go with that option. It's better to be more informed and prepared than under-informed. So get whatever information. Do school visits, have meetings, drive by your school at quiet times and at busy times to see what's going on in the community and the option that you'll consider. Find out about any assessments or reports that might be needed for your child if there are any additional needs to share with the school. They usually need to be covered and within 1 year of enrolment. So please get assessments and reports ready if that is also relevant. Medical plans, anything that might be useful and needed. Then choose the school. That's the hardest decision. Participate in orientation. Let your child get to know the school, the teacher, the other children that they will be with, as well as yourselves as a family, getting to know the school, the procedures, the community, etc. Then organise ongoing support for yourself and for your child and for the school if necessary. So it is quite a process and there is a lot involved, but hopefully this pathway will help you. Just so that you're aware, Early Ed does offer some free community supports other than these webinars. We have our Learn to Play and Play to Learn resource available through our webpage, and that is low cost and no cost activities that you can do with your child at home so that they can learn through play. So learning doesn't have to be a formal activity. It can be a washing activity, a bathing activity where you might be sorting toys, talking, sequencing, etc. And there's a lot of ideas. Active play, active learning is the same concept, but using our natural outdoor environments for learning through play and how we can do that and what activities and games we can do for that. My Time is a support play group for parents who have children with disabilities and want to share this with other parents in like circumstances. And it's usually run by a special educator or a family support worker. So that's also available, and you can access that through our website. Cubby House is a toy library available for families in Northern and Western Sydney. The actual Cubby House is at Forestville, so physically you would need to go there, but there are assistance available. We do also have Ready to Learn through Storytime. So this is a free service for families who might be struggling, who might have children struggling with things like group time, concentrating, engaging with books and literacy. So if eligible, you might be able to have up to 3 one-to-one sessions with a early ed specialist to help you engage with your child through story time to learn those things like waiting, listening, taking, engaging, to be ready for school. We have an online interactive story time that's also on every Thursday at 10 a.m. It is fabulous and entertaining. So if you are interested, you can get online and register for that. Our Haddon Target Word program is a fabulous program, and it's for children up to the age of 2.5 years who are late communicators. So they need to have some level of communication, but they are usually late communicators, and they have some degree of social skills as well. The Haddon program helps families enhance their child's communication and social skills in that regards. It's a long commitment, but one very worthwhile making. All of these are available through the Early Ed website, so you can get online and have a look at those. Another thing that we have recently done is our School Readiness Multicultural Resources. So again, this is a free resource available to families in the community. It has handouts, posters, and videos that are in English and translated in 6 other community languages as well. And it's short snippets of information on how you at home can prepare your child to be ready for school, and the skills that you can support developing your child in that process as well. So I will put these links in the chat as the night proceeds, but that's another free service that you can access and share. These are just some additional resources. Start Strong Pathways if you wanted more information, resourcing parents. The Raising Children Network and Council often has websites as well. I'll put those links in the chat. So I'm going to pass you on to our lovely guest speakers. We do have Diane from the independent schools. From our Catholic education, we have Lisa. From Department of Education, we have 2 presenters, Coralie and Victoria. They will all introduce themselves. And then Peter will share a parent story as well. I can see someone has raised their hand as the guest speakers are presenting. I will check that evening. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I'm going to hand over to our first speaker for the evening from our Australian Independent Schools. Diane, thank you very much. Diane, you're still on mute.
It's always the way. There's always something. Thank you. Thank you, Belinda. Now Siri is talking to me. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to, it's lovely to be here tonight, and thank you for inviting me. I work in Association of Independent Schools in New South Wales and the Student Services portfolio, and I'm an education consultant. We work with a variety of schools in supporting students with a lot of diverse needs. So I'd like to talk to you tonight about transitioning to school and what it's like to transition to school into an independent school. You may, or you probably already know, but we do have the three systems, I guess, 2 systems and a sector in New South Wales. You have your Department of Education, which I know you'll talk as well, and the Catholic system. Independent Schools New South Wales is called a sector. So independent schools are still subject to all the legislation that other school sectors are subject to, and that includes the Disability Discrimination Act, that includes the Disability Standards for Education, and all of our schools are also registered through NESA. But what makes us slightly different is that we are independent and autonomous. So our schools are accountable to their school boards. They will have their own individual school policies. There might be a variety of services offered, and every school, not every school will be the same. There's variable resources as well. So we have a lot of school services. Some schools are very small, some are large. They're those large independent schools you see in the news and the newspapers all the time, but we have a variety of schools in our sector. We're all still, as I said, accountable to the Education Act, disability legislation, child protection, and privacy, as well as all other schools in other sectors are. But every expression of independent schools might look just a little bit different. So there's a wide choice in our independent schools, based on philosophy, based on based on religion, possibly, based on educational approach. There's a variety of programs and options available. We have specialized schools, the special schools, and special assistant schools as well. They are located all over New South Wales. We have, just as all the other sectors do as well. There's a variety of parental involvement, as well as school community involvement. So we have, for example, we have Montessori schools. We have non-denominational schools. There might be faith-based, they might be Anglican, they might be Christian, they might be Islamic, they might be Buddhist. So just a variety of faith-based schools. And again, specialized schools, which are those sort of special schools as well. And special assistant schools for those students who might be a bit marginalized and who haven't succeeded at school, but they have a specialized program as well. They're language schools. So we have schools that speak in, that carry out through the day in maybe in 2 different languages usually. So there's a German school, a Japanese school, a French school, for example. If you're looking for a school, an independent school, if you go to our website, which is www.aisnsw.edu.au, you'll find at the bottom there's a school finder, a school locator facility there, where you can filter through a kind of a school that you might be searching for in your particular area. We have approximately 500 independent schools across New South Wales now, and the website will show you all those locations. I can put that in the chat if people are interested, and also provide you with that information later on in a slide if needed. You can see you can filter by each of those different regions. And we carry out services to all of the schools in these areas. We provide lots of advisory services as well to school boards, to maybe school executive teams, to teachers, and various other agencies. We do a lot of professional learning for students. So that's one of our core businesses, is to support teachers through a lot of professional learning and to observe students in schools and support schools with any processes and policies as well. So our services are tailored to meet the individual school needs. As I said, the professional learning, it might be virtual, it might be face-to-face. There's a lot of collaborative planning that we help schools meet with families. We look at inclusive classrooms, and there's a huge focus on what does inclusion mean in our sector, including how can we best provide adjustments for students in mainstream classrooms. What does assessment look like, monitoring in individual programming as well. We might look at a lot of processes and practices. We have quite a few initiatives in well-being as well as mental health, and we support schools through the enrollment process and a lot of behaviour support as well, individual, and looking at those universal sort of classroom supports for teachers as well. So probably what you want to know is, how do you enroll in an independent school? It's slightly different to the Department of Education or Catholic schools. You will contact the school directly. So if you find a school that you're interested in, you will contact the school directly and engage with the principal or the registrar at that particular school. Every independent school has its own enrollment policy, its own process, but still they're subject to the disability discrimination. So there is a process that they need to follow as well. But that's probably the slightly different process that you'll find with the other sectors. The processes vary, again, from school to school, but it does include regular transition. So you'll be looking for transition programs, you'll be looking for orientation programs for your students as well, maybe additional visits for your students if they have disability or diverse needs, just to give time for your child to understand the school, to become familiar with the environment, to get to know what the school looks like and what maybe some of those rules and expectations of the school are. Some of our schools prefer that their students wear uniforms. Some of them prefer they don't wear uniforms. So again, that's something you'll find out when you go to that school. But it's all about building those relationships early in the piece as well. So as a parent, what do you need to share with the school? We suggest you be very open and honest. Share all the relevant information that you have about your student, about your child. Provide those current reports, maybe from doctors, therapists, your whole team, if there's a large team or a small team, because the more information that you provide, the easier it is for the school to work with you and collaborate with you around the best practice adjustments that they can provide for your student. What are those level of needs as well? Remember, your child's going to be in school for about 13 years. So you want to really develop those relationships beautifully and be as transparent as you possibly can in these early stages of your communication with the school as well. The school will then put those supports in place. At least you can work on collaboratively what those supports look like. So at the same time, you are interviewing the school as much as the school is interviewing you. So you're kind of looking, how does this school suit my child? Will they be able to support my child? Can I be involved in that planning? Can my child be involved in the planning? What's that element of student voice that the school are offering as well? And who's the team surrounding my child? How can I best communicate?
5 minutes, Diane. Sorry.
Okay, I better be quick then. Okay, I will go quickly from here on in. So sharing, as I said, sharing that information is really crucial to your successful transition. This is a bit of a mock-up of one of our individual plans, which if your student needs an individual plan, you would hope that those barriers and adjustments would be identified with the school down the line. Some people ask about NDIS, and really they are parallel processes. So the collaborative planning between the schools, some NDIS practitioners might be welcome on site, and that needs to be negotiated with the school. But NDIS and school adjustments are parallel processes. You might use some of your NDIS funding for key equipment that travels between home and school. So if you have questions around this, please talk to the principal at the school. You'll be looking at transition. What does that look like? Families and schools collaborate. You'll have a transition plan, and that will look different depending on the school that you go to. Look at, does the school offer that orientation day? When is it? What can be expected? And then what activities and events will my student be involved in? And you would expect that they would participate in the whole life of the school. You want to find out how you can be involved in the life of the school as well, because it's not just your child who's going to school, it's you as well. How can you prepare yourself for your child's transition? Well, there's some good questions there. What is school? What does it mean? Well, how is it different from preschool as well? Familiarize yourself with some of the language and some of the expectations, and what does the school day look like? So I can provide some of these questions, make them available to you if that's helpful after this. So again, how do you prepare your child? Well, there's a lot of planning issues that you might consider. Supporting, like, what will those break times? Sometimes those unstructured times are more stressful for a lot of our students than others. So what will that look like in the school? And it's worth asking those questions. What about consistent approaches, including language? What is language that's going to be familiar to your child when they start school, so they know not to, that won't escalate them, for example, and that will help them remain to calm. So you might plan for that downtime when your child gets home. Don't ask them, what did you do at school? That's a pretty tough question for a lot of kids until later in the day. Also that organizing, there was the organizing. So how will you organize? Maybe they're visuals. Do you need those visuals? Do you need colors or checklists as well? All of those sorts of consideration. And again, practice how to open the lunchbox, how to dress, how to wear their school shoes. Play a lot of listening games together as well for fun. Teachers love kids who can listen. And there's calming techniques. What does that look like? How will I support those social emotional needs of my student in a particular context when they might be overwhelmed? And again, of course, the importance of literacy and reading books together. Pointing to those words in the pictures. So you're developing some of those pre-literacy skills for your student, your child, I'm sorry. All right, I have, here are some websites that might be you might be interested in. I can make those available to you as well. And I'm probably at the end. Am I, Peter, at the 1 minute to go? Okay, so I'm sorry, I sort of went through those last few slides fairly quickly, but it's just the importance of preparation and planning. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Schools are there and school staff are there. I've seen lots of kids. They're there to support you through the whole process of starting school, because it is different to preschool, and there's often an adjustment period, especially if it's your first child going to school. So I can say is all the best, and I wish you the most wonderful journey as you start school with your child, and consider an independent school if that's something you're looking for. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
You, Diane, and I can see some clapping of hands and thumbs up on the side, which is really lovely. Thank
Oh,
you
that's
for the
nice.
participants doing that. I did put your website in that link, but if they're in the chat, sorry, for the independent schools, but if there was anything else you wanted to put directly into the chat, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
You said some really valuable things, really worthwhile sharing with parents, but one of the things that stood out to me was parents are interviewing schools as much as schools are interviewing parents. And I think that's really worthwhile noting. Is that school suitable for your child? I think that was really important of you to mention. And the partnership of parents being involved in the child's school as well. I thought that was a really special thing to say. And families partnership doesn't have to mean being present and physical at the school all the time. We acknowledge that parents are working, parents have other responsibilities, life happens. Partnerships and parent involvement can look different. So I think, like Diane said, ask the school and see what you're comfortable with as well. It's not a necessity, but there are various opportunities for you to be involved in. So, Diane, thank you very much. If you could kindly stop sharing. I know that there are 2 questions directed to you. So when you are settled and the next presentation starts, feel free to jump onto the Q&A if you would like to answer that directly.
Thanks,
I
Belinda.
believe there is a participant raising their hand. If you could please use the Q&A for that question, that would be wonderful, because I'm not too sure how to get to you. And if you're unsure, you can use the chat and I'll direct you in the right direction as well. So thank you, Diane. Now I will hand over to the lovely Lisa. She can introduce herself and start her presentation as well. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Belinda. Good evening, everybody, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you tonight and to present to you some information around Catholic Schools Parramatta Diocese. So I work with a fabulous team in the office at Parramatta Diocese, and with diversity teams across our 83 schools in our diocese in Western Sydney, spanning from Dundas Valley all the way up to Katoomba, and in the southwest out to Luddenham. So as a system, we very much welcome students with disability and their families, and like Diane outlined in her presentation, we also are very aware of the legal obligations around enrolling and supporting and the transition of students with disability, and we welcome these students into our system. We actually ensure that we enrol students with disability on the same basis as other students in our system. And we're very committed in engaging in that sincere dialogue with parents and carers as you commence your enrolment process and through all the processes around transition and commencement of your child in our system. We're very committed also to be able to determine what is the functional impact of your child's disability as an individual, and identifying those reasonable adjustments that need to be put in place every lesson, every day, and in the broader school community, so that your child can access and participate in their learning and the full life of the school community in which they are in. So we strategically use our resources to ensure that the support is getting to these students, but we use them flexibly as well. and this is really important, because to really ensure that there is authentic and genuine inclusion of every student with disability, we need to be able to use resourcing and support flexibly. So as your child might need more at different periods in their transition process or schooling, you know, we support our school teams to respond to them in a very dynamic, flexible way. And we also determine where system support is required. And I'll unpack for you in a moment the multiple teams that work around supporting students with diverse needs in our Catholic diocese in a moment. But we also support you to determine whether a mainstream setting is suitable for your child, or whether an alternate setting is going to be more suitable. And I'll also unpack some of the options around alternate settings that exist within our system as well. So just so you're aware, you know, if you choose a Catholic education for your child and for your family to be involved in, just so you know what priorities that we consider throughout that enrolment process. So we do preference Catholic children and siblings of current students within our 83 schools. We are committed to supporting those who are disadvantaged and most in need, but we also accept enrolments of children from non-Catholic families where those places are available in your local area. But if places are limited, priority around enrolment is allocated in the following order. So obviously, priority is given to siblings of current students already enrolled at the school, students presently enrolled within a community of schools. So that is, you know, transferring from one diocesan school to the other, and students who are Catholic and from another CSPD school. So we support, currently we have over 10,000 students in our system who have a personalised plan to support them around providing adjustments due to the functional impact of their disability. And we have students that have disability in these different areas. So physical disability, cognitive disability, sensory disability. So those students who have a vision and hearing impairment or hearing impairment, and also students with a social emotional disability as well. So it is an inclusive model and it's very much needs-based. And we use that personalised planning process to determine what your individual child needs to support them to meet their educational outcomes, to meet their social emotional outcomes, and really have a really positive, fulfilling experience of schooling in our system. And we also comply with those legal obligations under the Disability Discrimination Act and the disability standards. And we ensure that consultation and collaboration with parents and carers not only happens at that entry level around enrolment, but that is a process that continues throughout all the years of your child's schooling in our system. It's an ongoing process, and it will be very variable, the frequency of the collaboration and consultation with you based on the individual needs of your child and the level of adjustment and support that they require. So you would expect, if your child has more complex needs in multiple areas, and their level of adjustments that they might require might be more at an extensive or substantial level, that you would have an expectation that you might meet with the school team to consult and collaborate with them on a more frequent basis. We talked about adjustments, and we also talked about every student who requires one having a personalised plan in our system. So you are a very active participant in developing that plan for your child. We invite you in through formal, organised opportunities, meeting opportunities, but also there will be several occasions where it might not be a face-to-face meeting, but contact might be via phone or email as well, to really fine-tune what supports your child needs. So we really value the input of parents and carers, and we also really value the voice of the student themselves as part of this process. So this is the teams of available in Catholic Schools Parramatta Diocese who support students with disability or additional needs. So I am the coordinator of the Inclusive Learning Team, and I lead a team of leading teachers and specialist teachers who work very closely with our diversity teams, or you might know them as learning support teams in our schools, to ensure that we are building their capacity to meet the needs of students with disability, but also to support them around our moral obligations and legal obligations to provide adjustments for students with disability. We also have a wellbeing team, and that is a team made up of counsellors, social workers, and there are also some lead teachers in that wellbeing directorate as well. And we run a whole lot of behaviour and special programs to support students and to support their teachers and leaders to be able to meet the social emotional needs of students in our system as well. And we also have a team under that wellbeing directorate who are dedicated to supporting the attendance, the consistent attendance of students. And what we do sometimes know that for students with disability, particularly with social emotional disability at different points of their schooling, you know, coming to school can be challenging for our students who have some mental health or social emotional needs. And that attendance team works very closely with families and with the students themselves to determine what supports they need to get them back to school and attending consistently.
5 more minutes. Sorry, Lisa.
No problem. We have a high support needs team, a post-school options team, which really supports that connection between school and what's going to happen for your child when they leave school, and a diagnostic assessment team. So just to quickly outline for you, we do also have within our system, we have 3 high support learning centres, and we also are connected to a collection of Aspect satellite classes. So I'll unpack both of those very briefly. And support in those 2 systems will differ depending on the individual needs of your students. So we have high support needs centres located at Landilo, which is out near Penrith, and that is a high support centre that's situated within a mainstream college. So there's lots of flexible opportunities for the students to attend classes and activities within the mainstream college. That's a 7 to 12. Wayunga is also a 7 to 12 option at Dundas. And we also have at St. Luke's, Arunga, a K to 8 option out at Marsden Park. Unfortunately, at the moment, because of really high demand, we have about a 4-year waiting list on that setting. The satellite classes are situated in these primary and secondary schools in our system, and although the aspect classes are separate, as they're a separate system to our diocese, they are situated on some of our school settings. So enrolment for those aspect classes need to be done separately. Now, if you want to enrol in any of our schools, including our mainstream schools, you must complete an enrolment application form, which is available from our website. And this can be done up to 2 years prior to your child commencing, including applications for kindergarten. So we urge you to make an appointment with the principal and a time for an interview. You know, be transparent, clearly state your child's needs, that, you know, that they have a disability, or outline what complex needs they may have. At the interview, it's really helpful if you bring all those relevant documents and assessment reports. And this is simply to support us to determine what critical support your child will need during their transition process, because we want their commencement at school to be successful. So the more we know about your child and what their needs are, the more we can ensure that we have the right supports in place ready for them. The school and the CSPD staff may consult with you about your child's enrolment as a follow-up as well. So we talked about the amount of schools in our diocese. Just so you know, we also have a number of Catholic out-of-school care services, you know, to support you if you're a working parent, but for before and after school care. And we currently have 40 services in our system. Finally, on this last slide, just to remember a few things, that it is a collaborative planning process. Not only do we collaborate with you, but we also, with your consent, collaborate with any allied health professional that you are that your child is currently receiving services from, and that is something that also will continue on an ongoing basis. But we urge you to explore all possibilities, make informed choices around what setting is going to be the most suitable for your child. And remember that no one placement is going to be perfect. So the more you know about a setting and what they offer, the better outcomes for you and your child and the whole family. And we really do expect you to be and encourage you to be an active advocate for your child. And, you know, we welcome communication from you at any point. Just so you know, I have also shared with Belinda another Getting Ready for School presentation, which really outlines some of those really good tips around ensuring that, you know, we are developing your child's independence as much as possible, where possible, that we're focusing on developing their social emotional skills, their communication skills, some really helpful tips around how you can do that. So that is available on request for Belinda to share with you as well. And finally, this is just some details around contacting us around receiving an enrolment application form. And this presentation can also be shared with you on request via Early Ed as well. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great. And it's wonderful you've got more claps and thumbs up, which is lovely to see. Thanks, participants. Lisa, thanks for reinforcing some of the great things that Diane said. And one of the things I really liked was you mentioning the options, family options. Families have choices. And so looking at that options and making those choices is their entitlement and them advocating for the voice of their and the rights of their child. So thank you for building on Diane and sharing all that extra stuff as well. It's wonderful that we've now heard from 2 schooling systems.
No problem. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, so we do. Thank you for that reminder, Peter. In the chat, I have put 2 links. One is the feedback survey link, and the other is the link to the Early Ed YouTube channel, which tonight's recording will be uploaded on over the next week. So it may not happen straight away, but please keep checking the YouTube channel for that recording to be uploaded, and it will come. If in doubt, you can always email and contact Early Ed. So our last presenters for this evening, I will let them introduce themselves, but we will have Victoria and Coralie from the Department of Education. I will be sharing their slides for them. So ladies, feel free to start introducing yourselves while I get your slides up. Thank you.
Victoria.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute. So good evening, everyone. They've obviously saved the best for last. I'm Victoria Lynch. I'm a Learning and Wellbeing Officer for the Department of Education. And we also have Coralie Pratt, who's a transition support teacher for early intervention. So planning for starting school. Start planning term 2 for the year prior to your child starting. Identify your local school. If you do not know your local school, you can go on the department website, educationnewsouthwales.gov.au school finder, and that will give you your feeder school that you would feed into, or census school. Don't necessarily have to contact the principal, just make contact with the school. They will make contact, they will then connect you with the right people that will help with your enrolment and what your child may need. Then you have to complete the online enrolment application. Department provides a range of services and resources to support students with disabilities and additional learning needs. If your child has a physical disability or may need structural changes to the school, definitely contact earlier. If we're needing to do structural changes, we do require time to organise builders and to get all those type of works done. With regard to if you're requiring a special class, it is good to probably just notify the school at least a year before, or that year before you're enrolling. All right, programs.
Okay, I'll go through those.
Yeah.
There are a number of prior to school programs offered by the department. There are a number of early intervention classes, which are very small classes of 6 to 8 children, supported by a teacher and a learning support officer. Children attend early intervention classes for 2 or 3 mornings a week, and the rest of the time they attend their regular preschool if they have one. The early intervention classes in Metropolitan North are based at Dee Why Public School and Yates Avenue Public School, and there's one at Norman Hurst West Public School as well. If you're interested in any of those options, you will approach your local school, who will guide you through the application process. The early intervention teachers also provide resource support for preschools if parents prefer their children to not attend the class, but to have their preschool supported by professionals. There is a team of itinerant support teachers, Vision, for children with vision needs, and you can apply for their support from age 3. You go through your local school for that as well, and support can be delivered in the preschool or the base school of the itinerant support teachers. There's also a team of itinerant support teachers hearing, and you can actually apply from the age of diagnosis of a hearing need, which may be birth, and support can also be delivered in the preschool. There are eligibility criteria, but to find out about that, go to your local school. There is one little support class hearing at Nuwara, and that's available for children from age 3. And my position, transition support teacher early intervention, is available. There are about 9 of us throughout the state, and we provide transition support for schools, teachers, families, and early childhood centres. Thank you.
Enrolment application. So all parents carers need to complete the standard enrolment application. Other important information to include on the enrolment form is if your child has any additional learning needs or support needs. This is important. When I was working in schools as a learning and support teacher, the more the school knows about your child, the more they're able to make sure they're setting up the right supports when they're at school. So the quicker they know what your child requires, the transition to school is a lot better. The principal may ask about your child's special circumstances and request additional information, including behaviour plans, assessments and reports, healthcare plans, emergency response plans, and adjustments made prior to school in programs. Through any form of diagnosis that your child has, it is good to let the school know.
Everyone's spoken about the need for as much information as possible to be provided to the schools so that planning can start early, and the adjustments that need to be made for your child are available on day one. So on the departmental website under enrolment, there is a transition to school statement which can be downloaded or filled in online. And we always encourage early childhood centres to fill in their part, and parents as well. And the sort of information you can provide is not only personal details, but qualities and abilities, sort of children's expectations about starting school, and parental expectations and hopes for their child as well. So have a look at that, and if you can provide some information, please do. Thank you. Most of this has been covered. There are all sorts of suggestions and tips for planning transition. But the main one, I think, is to make sure you take your child to at least one orientation session at their new school. Most schools have 2 or 3 orientation sessions in term 3 and term 4. And it's really important if children can go to participate in them. During these orientations, a school counsellor and possibly a learning support teacher can go in and observe children while they're involved in activities that are provided in the classroom, and get a better idea of children who may need some additional supports and planning before they get to school. Many schools in COVID times developed fabulous school videos, and they're probably still up on the school website. They're worthwhile looking at. Many schools have commercially produced information booklets, which are fantastic. On the departmental website, there are pro forma for social stories, which you can create for your child or schools can create as well. As everyone said, practice getting dressed, walking past the school, unpacking recess and lunch. And another thing, perhaps practicing some scripts that they may need, like inviting, how do you invite another child to play, or asking a question. And if your child is highly anxious about coming to school or has a disability, schools will usually incorporate a one-on-one transition session and a transition planning meeting with relevant staff. Thank you. Also on the departmental website, there is a very cute story, Daisy's first day, which children might like to print out and read. Thank you.
About 5 minutes to go.
Sorry, most of that is covered. Label everything is probably the message for parents. But other suggestions as well. Thank you. And you could even have a visual with a checklist. And don't forget the smile. Thank you. A positive transition to school is really, really important, and has research has suggested there's an impact on how well children, the trajectory of children's progress through school. So if you have any concerns at all about what happens at school or transition, please contact your school early and nut it out and develop a solution with staff that you're happy with, because building relationships is in kindergarten and before, building a relationship with schools and staff sets you up for a trusting relationship and open communications throughout the child's stay at school. Thank you. We're very concerned about continuity of learning during term 1 of kindergarten. Most of the learning is play-based, and children are gradually introduced to the world of more formal learning later in the term. Thank you. And the core focus of kindergarten, of course, is developing positive and trusting relationships with staff and peers, making friends, developing communication skills, following routines, sharing materials and attention, taking turns, things that they're continuing from preschool. They probably developed some of those skills at preschool, but this is in a larger environment. And developing skills, academic skills as well. But largely developing a sense of competence and confidence. Thank you. Victoria?
Thank you. Support in schools. We are committed to ensuring all children are known, valued and cared for. We have to get to know our students to give them the best learning environment. Well, a lot of this has already been covered in other areas as well. Our students are supported by expertise to access the full curriculum in a way that is personalised for them. We do a lot of differentiation for students to make sure that they can access learning assessments and they feel part and a sense of belonging within the classroom and the school community. We also have a lot of wellbeing programs where we build friendships that support interactions with their peers and also their teachers within the school environment. Thank you. There is a very wide team around the school that supports the school and all students and parents within the school environment. This includes learning and wellbeing coordinators, advisors and officers, which is what I am, assistant principals, learning and support that assist students with behaviours or learning difficulties or disabilities, network specialist facilitators that really support wellbeing and learning as well. NDIS transition coordinators that can assist in your NDIS plan and also obtaining NDIS funding. Behaviour specialist advisors and officers that come into schools and support the schools and individual teachers and learning and support staff to improve supports to assist in improving behaviours. Aboriginal community and student liaison officers, homeschool liaison officers, both of those assist students with attendance and families. Senior psychologists, education. We have those that also oversee psychologists and counsellors within schools. Assistant principals, hearing and vision. Out of home care teachers and support teachers transition as like Coralie. Thank you. In-school programs include learning and support teacher, which are within schools and create individual education plans for your student and guide teachers on differentiation and different ways and supports for the student to learn and for the teacher to teach that student. School counselling teams are in majority of schools. Specialist services and programs targeted for individual students, such as integration funding support that can be applied for through the schools. Itinerant teacher support, vision and hearing, that come in and also support teachers in schools, and support classes in mainstream schools. And there are support classes in special schools that can support all types of students.
We're out of time now. Okay.
With regard to accessing support classes, you do have to go to your census school and you have to get the school to apply for an access request. They will then work with, if you do not choose to go through the public school system, the public school will work with the private school to create this access request, which will then go to a panel, and that panel will decide if which placement is suitable for your child if you are requiring a special support class. Thank you.
If you want some more information, the department actually has an inclusive practice hub for parents on their website, on our website, which is well worth looking at. Thank you.
And if you need to contact about any of the information that we've discussed today and would like more one-on-one personal, please contact the local school service teams on 131 536 or the Macquarie Park office on 9886 7000, and you will be put through to a learning and wellbeing officer such as myself, and we can individually support you in all your needs. Thank you for your time today. And sorry for my numerous ums. This is the first time I've presented on this.
You've done well.
Yeah, you did. You both did. So thank you both for sharing that valuable information. Thank you, participants, for the clapping of the hands. Coralie, I really love that the backpack that you had and suggesting a visual checklist. I think it's great because I know as teenagers, my children still forget to pack things. So starting off afresh and having a visual checklist really helps children become independent and in control and responsible for their belongings. I think it's a great suggestion. Visuals are a wonderful means to support anybody, including adults, and can be used for all things, routines, what they need to pack, etc. So thank you both for all that sharing. I do believe that there are some questions that are yet to be answered. So if the panelists want to have a look, there are some directed at Department of Ed. There is some directed about of what age to start. And there are some questions about supports for children. So if you want to go through those questions, also in the chat, I have included the link for the feedback survey. So if you were able to do that, that would be wonderful, families. And Peter has included that as well. So thank you, Peter. We do have a QR code and I'll put that up at the end. But for now, Peter is going to share a family's journey on school options and their child starting school. The parent couldn't be here this evening, so Peter is going to read that on their behalf. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Belinda. Sorry, I was just swapping screens around. So we've got some information from a parent's perspective on their journey enrolling their child in school, and I'm just going to read that on their behalf. Choosing a school for your child can be daunting. Not knowing where to start can make it seem overwhelming. These are all the emotions we felt when we started this journey with our child. We started the journey quite early. It was 1.5 years before our child started school that we contacted our local public school to apply for early intervention classes. At the end of 2020, we found out that our child would be attending 2 days a week the year before they started kindergarten. Early intervention and preschool were 2 great ways we found beneficial in helping our child develop their school readiness skills. Early intervention was a small group setting with only 8 children, whereas preschool was a larger group setting. Both were developing their skills needed for school. During term 2 of early intervention, our child's teacher, with our consent, applied for a support class for kindergarten. At this stage, we were unsure of the path we would take, whether it would be a support class or a mainstream school option, but we wanted to leave both these options open. When considering schools, we looked at a number of options. We attended this webinar that you're listening to right now so that we could be well informed of the different types of schools available. We also contacted all schools, including Catholic, public, independent, and any support classes in our area that were within a 15-minute radius, as this was the distance that we thought was convenient for us to travel each day. We set no limits on schooling options. At each open day, we went in with an open mind and our own child's needs in mind. This is really important as each parent may have certain things they're looking for in a school. Due to COVID restrictions, we could not go to every school for an open day, so we had a phone conversation with some instead to find out if it was the right school for our child. After each conversation with the different schools, we would make notes on the class sizes and the support our child would receive in each school setting, because we knew that if our child went to mainstream, they would require additional support in the classroom. Both of these factors were of high priority to us. After talking to various schools, it became quite apparent the differences in support that our child would receive across mainstream schools. One school in particular convinced us to give our child the opportunity to start kindergarten in mainstream. When applying to this school, we gave them all the required assessments so that they were well informed about our child's needs. We also had a current cognitive assessment, which assisted them in understanding the learning needs of our child. A key part of this school's enrolment process was going to see our child in their early intervention and preschool settings, which not all schools offered. This was pivotal for our child as they were able to see them in their natural environments and they were able to gain a greater understanding of our child and how they learn. It was not long after the principal and diversity coordinator had observed our child that I received a phone call from the school offering a mainstream position for 2022. In our conversation, they mentioned that they were able to view our child as a little person rather than our child being viewed by their diagnosis, which can sometimes place limitations on children. We know that each child that has diagnosis has so many strengths too. During our phone call, they were able to explain the support that they were going to have in place for our child from the first day that they started kindergarten. We then had a tough decision to make, as our child had also been accepted into a support class in a mainstream school. Making the decision for our child to go to mainstream was not easy, as we had a lot of varying opinions when it came to schooling for our child. Some would advise us support class, whereas others would suggest to give mainstream a go, and if it wasn't successful, we could always apply for support class in year 1. We debated this dilemma for a while, as deep down we wanted our child to go to mainstream, though we were unsure what was the right choice to make. In the end, we decided to give our child the opportunity to have a go at mainstream. The school that had accepted our child was supportive of our child's needs and was willing to place additional support to cater for their learning behaviours. They did everything they could to work with us to make the transition from preschool to kindergarten as smooth as possible. When having a child with additional needs, it can take longer to make decisions, as your child may be viewed differently by people. It was important for us to not lose sight with what we wanted as parents for our child. From our journey, there was a number of things that we learnt along the way about choosing the right school for our child. A number of things we learnt were from talking to a special educator at Early Ed, as they were able to inform us about schools and options available that were unique to our child. If I could leave you with some of our thoughts in regards to choosing a school for your child, it would be to follow your instincts as parents. No one knows your child better than you do. Look at as many schools as you can so you can get a feel of the school to see if it is the right one for your child. Believe in your child. You are their key advocate. Be their voice with whatever the school setting you choose. And lastly, try to give the school as much information as you can so they can organise support from day one of kindergarten, as this can take an extensive amount of time, especially if your child needs additional support in mainstream classroom. We hope this helps you make the big decision for which school you will send your child to. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing that parent's journey. It was very meaningful. I know that we have had feedback. We shared that story last year as well, and participants were giving a lot of positive feedback. I just have put an answer. Someone asked for specifically the school. I'm sorry, the parent was quite specific on privacy and confidentiality, so we can only share what Peter has read. I hope you understand that. But please follow the process that parent followed within your local area, and I am sure that you will have the same response from the schools in which you are in contact with. So in saying that, before we go off tonight, there is going to be one more poll run, but I did want to just share with you the QR code. So if you would quickly like to grab your phone and access that QR code, that will take you straight to the survey link as well. And we would really love your feedback. We also have some questions that haven't been answered yet, so I'm happy to put those questions up and maybe panelists can unmute themselves and just share their responses. Hopefully these participants are still here and can hear what you have to say. So I know Victoria is answering some questions. I can see your name has popped up. We have a parent saying that they have a child turning 4 in January. Is that a good age to enroll this child at school? And how will we know if the child is ready for school? Would any panelists like to speak about 4 being a good age, and how do we know if the child is ready?
I think I replied to that one, or maybe I missed it. I'd be speaking to your preschool teacher, and if you have concerns, you could also ring the school that you would be enrolling in and also express your concerns to that school as well to get further advice.
Great, thank you.
Part of my job too is on the behalf of schools is going into early childhood centres and observing children, and that quite often my observations and the observations of other staff who go in can be the basis of discussions about whether children appear to be ready.
Thank you, Coralie. Victoria, you did also note that you were going to answer this question, but I don't know if it's come up. I think you have to click done. But what about government school catchment schools, and what is the procedure to enrol?
Yeah, I don't know what I did there. I can't get back into it.
Did you say that school? There is a school finder on the departmental website under enrolment. And you could put in your postcode or address and it tells you which is your local school.
And I believe each school system has a school finder attached on the website. So one for independents and one for Catholic, one for department.
And even if you go to the website, Department of Education, enrolment, there will be a form online where you can fill out the enrolment form.
Thank you. We have someone in the Gold Coast asking if anybody knows whether early intervention services are available there in department schools, and are they called the same thing? I haven't heard anything like this apart from the Catholic school system. Being from New South Wales, Jade, I'm sorry, I don't know specifically about the Gold Coast. Do any of the panelists have any experience in relation to that? My suggestion might be is to get onto the general websites, so the Department of Ed website relevant to Gold Coast, same for Catholic and independent schools, maybe contacting your local schools as well to see if they can give you more information specific to your area.
Yes. And Belinda, we do have some schools
Yes.
that up that area
Yes.
who have like a pre-K. So you might consider something like that as well. Some of the schools in that area. So on our schools finder, you might locate some of those.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Diane. We have a question from Sweetie. Coralie's answering.
I'm just answering it now. I can do it online. Children have to have evidence of a diagnosed disability to be considered for an early intervention class.
Excellent. Thank you, Coralie. We have Naga, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is asking, does public schools have open days? She has tried calling some special needs schools. They've said due to COVID restrictions, they're not running these at the moment. And what about mainstream support units? Are there open days for this?
There will, you would have to ring each individual school to see what their plans are. But if your child is in a preschool system, and if an access request has gone in to attend these schools, and if you have been given notice that you have been accepted, they will create a transition plan for you, which will include visits to the school prior. With regard to support classes, no, they tend to not just have open days, as it's only specific students who get placed.
Thank you.
I think, Aaron, I know that Aranoombai, which is a school for specific purposes on the Northern Beaches, they have an open day, but most schools anticipate that parents will have a look once they've been given an offer.
Thank you. We've had Ria ask, what is the difference between mainstream support, mainstream and mainstream support as referred to by Peter? So Department of Ed, you might want to, actually any panelists can answer that, but I believe mainstream is your traditional school?
Yeah. So mainstream is where majority of students go. And with regard to supports to mainstream, what that means is that your child may have a disability or learning difficulty or, behavior concerns, but they are attending a mainstream class. Now, for them to do so, there would be plans, support plans like individual education plans, behavior plans that support the teacher and the school and the student for them to be able to access learning in that mainstream environment. So, we would have students with autism, for example, maybe level 1, level 2, who are attending mainstream classes, who are requiring, their schoolwork may be differentiated, so it might be slightly different to the other peers in the classwork, but it's achievable for them to access that learning. So they're still in that main school environment. They're not in a specific class, so that as per every other student, and that's why it's called mainstream. Support classes tend to be for students that have a lot higher needs and a smaller class, and that suits them better. Like a class of 30 may not be able to suit, does not suit every student. So that's why we have mainstream learning with supports and differentiation and adjustments. And then we have specific support classes that require, more, that can supply better, more supports, I wouldn't say better, more supports to that student. In saying that, we also have very high needs in mainstream classes because that's a choice of the parent as well. And that's when the school adjusts. It may mean the environment, so, changing buildings, and, they will have student learning support officers. So mainstream learning does cater for every student. It's just, and that's why I said earlier that a school knows if you have chosen mainstream, the school can begin to get prepared.
Can I just add to that, if a child attends a support class that is within a mainstream school, they are also included in all the events that happen in that school. They are quite often in the playground with all students in their grade, and they attend things like assemblies and sports days on the same basis as other children at the school.
They do. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very inclusive.
Thank you. Thank you both for answering. We do have a specific question from Sweetie in regards to an application she made through a school and was told she wasn't eligible. I don't know if the panelists can speak to a specific school decision, but she's made reference to her child having access to OT and speech and has a formal diagnosis for autism. And she's asking, does having access to these therapies make my child not eligible for access to early intervention? So I don't know whether panelists could speak specific to individual school decisions.
With regard to access early intervention, to get an early intervention placement, the school has to put in an access request, and that access request goes to a panel. Now, at that panel, they look at, there is numerous students that go forward for, it might be minimum placements. So there's a lot that panel take into consideration when they place a student. So it's not just on an individual process. It's got nothing to do with if you have extra support for your child. It is literally goes down to that process of access request and going to a panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. We've got some questions around, can I get my child enrolled or fill application for the schools which are not in my suburb? So I think all panelists have made reference to that. But please, if you want to each say something specific about catchment and external area or children external to that area, because there's another question very similar. Out of area, is there more consideration to accept the child out of area if they have a disability? In particular, if you are applying for the purpose of accessing better support. I believe access requests are for a position, not for a school.
That's
so the position, so the position could be wherever the vacancy comes up rather than a specific school.
And it does relate to distance as well. Like we don't want a child traveling half an hour to school. Great. So it does relate to distance. With regard to, it is up to each individual school, whether, and I'm talking mainstream here, not support classes, if they accept a student out of area. In some areas, like where we are at the moment, schools tend not to take students out of area. They do have to go and apply at their feeders at their main school.
Thank you.
And that would be quite different for the independent or private sector. So where parents would choose a school and would make that judgment themselves about the distance they need to provide to get that student to school, if it's very far or not. Mm. So they could apply to any school that that they would like in the independence section.
Lovely. Thank you all for sharing and answering those questions. I hope all the questions have been answered. We do have a few more coming through. I've just put in our chat, and I will also show, I'm mindful of the time and our presenters' times as well. I will also share one final slide. I've put in the chat the Early Ed email, and it's also here on the screen, services@earlyed.com.au. If there is anything that has not been yet answered, please feel free to email. And I also placed my personal email there, bhasarati@earlyed.com.au. Either of those addresses will find its way to us, and we can follow anything up that hasn't been addressed tonight. Just to let you know, if you wanted to attend, we do have a Getting Ready for School webinar on the 5th of September, which will be a very similar webinar to where you are tonight, but specifically talking about school readiness and school preparation. So you are welcome to join that as well. Peter, I'm going to stop share and ask you to run the final poll. Families, while Peter is doing that, if you could remember to complete the survey for your feedback, it would be very valuable. And you are welcome to log on to YouTube and check when this recording will be uploaded. So in relation to the confidence, we still have some people. We've got a few more very confident. We have confident is increasing. We still have somewhat confident, and we've got far less not confident. So I'm glad to see that the confidence overall in enrolling your child has increased. Thank you, panelists, for sharing all that information. I'm going to, and for the second question, if you feel that you need more information, people are saying yes, they still do. So please forward the information that you feel you need to us. Some are saying no, they don't need any more, and then we do have babies. So I will share those results quickly. Are you able to see the shared results on my screen? Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your valuable time this evening. Thank you, Peter, and for being on board to help run tonight. And thank you for participants for joining us and for your claps and for your questions and being so interactive. It was really valuable to have that ongoing input. And I hope, I wish you all the best on your journey and your decision making. And I hope you get all the support you need and look forward to working with you in the future.
And thank you to
everybody.
Belinda for being our host tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.